In the desert city of Phoenix, hundreds of bodies lie in cryogenic chambers. We don't know who exactly is stored here, but we do know the name of one man who put his brain on ice. And he's not an eccentric billionaire or a sci-fi fanatic. He's a 20th century Chinese philosopher. Li Zehou was a leading figure in the Second Chinese Enlightenment. He had broad appeal across intellectual circles as he blended philosophical thought from Confucianism to Marxism.
As the great sinologist Yu Yingshi once said, his ideas and his written works rescued a generation of intellectuals from the tyranny of Cultural Revolution era Mao. It is because of his ability to write in such a way that was provocative, yet fascinating and broadly accessible, that he remains such a seminal figure even today.
The high-tech world of cryonics seems a strange ending for an intellectual born in a small village during the Great Depression. But Li's dying wish was to freeze his brain. Take it out after 300 or 500 years, he told a magazine. I'm trying to prove whether culture affects the brain and whether it is possible to find remnants of Chinese culture in my brain after a few hundred years, to prove my Jiden theory.
Where Li Zehou is trying to go with it is that whatever social milieu into which you enter, you're not receiving it as a passive agent. And as you shape this environment, as you have an influence on this environment, it influences you as well.
Okay, so how does cryonics work? And does it work? When you die, your blood is drained and replaced with an organ preservation solution. Over several days, your body is gradually cooled to minus 200 degrees and stored in a vacuum-sealed chamber. The final step, revival, well, that's a work in progress.
I'm the CEO, or co-CEO, of the leading research organization doing this. I'm telling you right now, I'm not promising you revival. There is a small group of members that think that we will imminently perhaps be revived, as they call it. But Alcor's not a philosophical organization. We're not a religion. We are a science lab.
The Alcor Life Extension Foundation pitches itself as a not-for-profit whose clients are crowdfunding the science of cryonics. And Li isn't the only big thinker to put his trust in Alcor.
They want to be part of that science experiment. They want to be part of the Apollo moon landing of biology. Because even if it doesn't work for them, if they contribute, it could work for their grandchildren.
One of the biggest challenges is we don't know if the methods of preservation used today will suit the technology of tomorrow. And while nature shows it may be possible to be cryogenically frozen and survive, like this frog which freezes in the winter and hops out in spring, humans are incredibly complex creatures. How exactly to thaw our bodies without damaging tissue and organs remains an open question. Li doesn't want to come back. He just wants to be studied. So, what of his theories? We do know that things like stress and alcohol physically impact the brain. But what about culture? Does that leave a mark?
Life and society influences our brain a lot through the environmental inputs that we have. In terms of, the impact of a society or a person's life experience, that's a lot harder to actually study. We look at individual brains, but then to actually draw conclusions, we need to have a large number of brains all treated the same way.
So unless Alcor receives dozens of philosophers' brains in the next few years, it's probably going to be tough to run a controlled study. But maybe that's missing the point of Li's donation.
His philosophy was that you could both be an individual and embrace individual rights, but at the same time, you ought to be contributing to the common good. Fantastic donation, right? Because we have this incredible brain of a great thinker of our time that we get to preserve and we get to study.